Can I ask you something personal? When was the last time you woke up and your body just felt fine? No stiffness, no aching knees, no hips that feel like they're made of rusty metal. Just fine. If you have to think back more than a few days to answer that, then I need you to stay right here with me. Because what I'm about to share with you explains a lot. And I mean a lot. Most people over 60 who are dealing with joint pain have been told the same things. It's just wear and tear. You're getting older. Try glucosamine. Lose some weight. And maybe you've tried all of it. And maybe none of it worked. Here's the thing. It didn't work because it wasn't targeting the real problem. And the real problem? Nobody ever told you about it. Not your doctor. Not the supplement companies. Nobody. Today, that changes. Because once you understand what is actually happening inside your joints, not wear and tear, not age, not bad luck. Once you understand the real cause, everything starts to make sense. And more importantly, there's something you can actually do about it. So settle in. Grab your coffee. This could be one of the most important things you watch all year. Let me paint a picture and tell me if this sounds familiar. You wake up in the morning and the very first thing you notice, before you've even had a second to think, is that your joints feel like they've been cemented overnight. Your knees are stiff. Maybe your hips feel locked. Your fingers might be swollen and achy, like someone squeezed them while you were sleeping. You sit on the edge of the bed for a minute, 2 minutes, maybe 3, just waiting for your body to loosen up enough to stand. And then when you finally do stand, there it is. That grinding sensation, or that sharp little jolt of pain when you put weight on your knee. And you think, is this how it's going to be every single morning from now on? You started making small adjustments, haven't you? Little things that other people probably don't even notice. You take the elevator now instead of the stairs. You sit down and put on your shoes. You park as close to the entrance as possible. You stop kneeling down in the garden. Actually, you might have stopped gardening altogether. You say no to walks on the beach because the sand is uneven. You skip hikes with friends. You've started dreading the holidays, not because of the cooking or the travel, but because of all the standing and walking that comes with them. And your grandkids, that one really hits. They want to run around with you. They want to sit on the floor and play. They want you to chase them in the backyard. And you want to do all of that. You desperately want to, but your joints won't let you. And that is a heartbreak that nobody talks about. So instead you sit in the chair and watch. And you smile so they don't know how much it hurts, not just physically, but here. And you tried things, right? Of course you have. You're not the kind of person who just accepts something without trying to fix it. You tried ibuprofen, maybe prescription anti-inflammatories. You've tried glucosamine, probably for months before deciding it wasn't doing a thing. You might have done physical therapy. Maybe you've tried heat wraps, ice packs, those copper compression sleeves. Maybe even a cortisone shot or 2. And some of that stuff gives you a little relief. For a while. But then it comes back. And every time it comes back, it feels like it's gotten just a little bit worse. Your doctor says, well, you're not getting any younger. Like that's supposed to be helpful. Like you didn't already know that. Here's what I want you to hear right now. This is not just aging. This is not just your fate. There is a real, biological, specific reason your joints feel the way they do. And when you understand it, truly understand it, the path forward becomes a lot clearer. So let's talk about what's actually going on. Okay, so let's start with what you've probably been told. The wear and tear theory. The idea that your joints are like the tires on a car. The more miles you put on them, the more they wear down. Now on the surface, that sounds logical. Of course things wear out over time. Of course moving around a lot might take a toll on your knees and hips. But here's the problem. The science doesn't back it up. At all. Think about this for a second. If joint pain was purely about how much you've used your body, then the most active people, marathon runners, construction workers, farmers who spend decades bent over fields, they should all be crippled by age 55, right? But that's not what we actually see. We see plenty of very active 70 and 80-year-olds who move better than sedentary 50-year-olds. And we see people who've barely exercised a day in their lives struggling terribly with joint pain. Researchers actually dug into this in a pretty remarkable way. They studied the skeletal remains of people who lived thousands of years ago. Hunter-gatherers who walked miles every single day. People who squatted to cook, knelt to gather food, carried heavy loads on their backs. Their bodies were under constant physical stress, far more than yours or mine. And what did researchers find when they examined their joints? They were in better shape than modern joints. The rates of joint breakdown we see today were far less common in those ancient skeletons. Now, that's a really uncomfortable fact if you believe in the wear and tear theory, because those people used their joints far more than we do. And yet, their joints were healthier. So the question becomes, if it's not wear and tear, what is it? And here's where it gets really interesting, because the answer has been sitting right there in the research for years. And for some reason, it's never made it into the mainstream conversation. The answer is fluid, or more specifically, the loss of. Let me give you a picture that's going to make everything click. You know a door hinge, right? When a door hinge is well lubricated, the door swings open perfectly. Smooth, silent, no effort. But leave that hinge alone for a few years, let the oil dry up, and what happens? The door starts to squeak. Then it starts to stick. Then it's grinding. And eventually, if you don't do anything about it, the metal-on-metal contact starts to actually damage the hinge itself. That is almost exactly what is happening inside your joints. Inside every joint in your body, your knees, your hips, your shoulders, your fingers, there's a thin layer of fluid. Doctors call it synovial fluid, but let's just call it joint oil. That's what it is. It's your body's natural lubricant. When you're young, your body produces plenty of this joint oil. It fills the space between your bones. It keeps the surfaces slippery. It absorbs shock when you walk, run, jump. It delivers nutrients to your cartilage. It protects everything. But here's the part nobody tells you about. Starting around age 30, yes, 30, your body starts producing less of this fluid. Not a lot at first. Maybe 1% less per year, which doesn't sound like much. But do the math. By the time you're 60, you've lost roughly 30% of that protective fluid. By 70, even more. And as that fluid disappears, the cushioning between your bones gets thinner and thinner. The cartilage dries out because it's not getting the lubrication and nutrients it needs. And eventually you start to get that grinding, bone-on-bone sensation. That's not just a figure of speech. That's literally what's happening. Bone grinding on bone because the fluid that was supposed to be there isn't. Now here's why this matters so much. That grinding creates inflammation. Your body senses damage, and it sends signals that say, emergency, send help. And the help that arrives is inflammation, your body's repair crew. Except inflammation is painful. And when it becomes chronic, when it keeps getting triggered over and over again, it actually starts to cause more damage. It's like calling in a repair crew that accidentally breaks more than it fixes. So you end up with this terrible cycle. Low fluid leads to grinding. Grinding leads to inflammation. Inflammation causes pain and damage. The damage triggers more inflammation, and the pain makes you move less. And when you move less, circulation drops, the joint gets even less lubrication, and it gets worse. That cycle, that is what you've been living in. And now here's what explains something that's probably confused you for years. Why does it hurt more in the morning? Why do you feel so stiff when you first wake up? When you sleep, you barely move. Your joints stay mostly still for 6 to 8 hours. And without movement, that thin layer of remaining joint fluid just settles. It spreads out. It gets pushed to the edges. So when you wake up and try to move, your joints are essentially running on empty. There's almost nothing in between those surfaces until you start moving and the fluid redistributes. That's your warm-up period. That's those painful first minutes on the edge of the bed. And on cold mornings, cold makes fluid thicker and harder to move around. Which is why so many people tell me that damp, cold weather just absolutely destroys their joints. It's not your imagination. There's a real reason. The same thing explains why your joints get worse with prolonged sitting. You sit in a chair for an hour, you stand up, and there's that pain again, because during that hour of stillness, the fluid had again pulled away from where it's needed most. This is the real explanation. Not wear and tear. Not bad luck. Not getting old. Your joint fluid is drying up, and that's what's causing the grinding, the stiffness, the inflammation, the pain. Now, and this is where I want you to lean in a little bit. The obvious question is, can you do anything about this? Can you actually restore that fluid? can you reverse what's happening? And the answer is, researchers think yes. And the way they've figured out to do is honestly a lot simpler than you might expect. Before I get to that, though, let me share a few things that are almost certainly making your joint fluid situation worse. Because some of these might surprise you. The dehydration problem. First, dehydration. Most people over 60 are mildly dehydrated almost all the time, and they don't even realize it. Because as we age, our sense of thirst gets less accurate. You can actually be significantly dehydrated and not feel thirsty. Why does that matter for joints? Because synovial fluid, that joint oil we've been talking about, is mostly water. If your body is even slightly dehydrated, one of the first places it pulls water from is your joints. Your body figures, well, the brain needs water more than the knee does, so your knees get shortchanged. This is why some people notice their joints feel better in summer after being outdoors and drinking more. And worse in winter when they're indoors, heating is on, and they're drinking mostly coffee. The fix is simple but not exciting. More water. Genuinely. 8 to 10 glasses a day. If you're not doing that, your joints are paying the price. The sitting problem. Second, prolonged sitting. I know, nobody wants to hear this one. But when you sit for long stretches without moving, you're actually starving your joints. Here's something fascinating. Cartilage, the padding inside your joints, has no blood supply. It can't get nutrients from your bloodstream directly. Instead, it absorbs nutrients from that synovial fluid we've been talking about. And the way that fluid delivers nutrients is through movement. When you move your joints, the fluid gets pushed in and out of the cartilage like squeezing a sponge. That sponge action is how cartilage eats. When you sit still for hours, that process stops. Cartilage stops getting fed, and over time, it starts to deteriorate faster. You don't have to run a marathon. Just get up every 45 minutes or so. Walk to the kitchen. Do a few gentle knee bends. March in place. Even 30 seconds of movement every hour makes a real difference over time. The anti-inflammatory food factor. Third, what you're eating. Now, I'm not going to give you a complicated diet plan, but there are a few things worth knowing. Some foods actively trigger inflammation in your body. And when your joints are already inflamed and struggling, eating inflammatory foods is like pouring fuel on a fire. The biggest offenders? Processed sugar is number one. It triggers inflammatory responses throughout your body, including your joints. Refined carbs, white bread, white pasta do the same. Vegetable oils high in omega-6 fats, which are in almost every processed food, are inflammatory. And on the flip side, some foods help reduce inflammation. Fatty fish like salmon, sardines, mackerel, they're high in omega-3s, which are natural anti-inflammatories. Berries, blueberries, strawberries, cherries are loaded with antioxidants that reduce inflammation. Ginger and turmeric have compounds in them that researchers have been studying for their anti-inflammatory effects. Now, changing your diet isn't going to miraculously restore your joint fluid, but it can reduce some of the inflammatory background noise that's making your pain worse. And combined with addressing the root cause, it can make a real difference. The over-the-counter trap. Fourth, and this one is important, the overuse of over-the-counter pain relievers. Ibuprofen, naproxen, these are NSAIDs. They reduce inflammation, and they do bring short-term relief. I understand why people use them. When you're in pain, you just want to stop. But here's what most people don't know. Long-term use of NSAIDs has actually been shown in some studies to accelerate cartilage breakdown. They may actually be making the underlying joint problem worse while masking the pain signal that's telling you something is wrong. That's not to say never use them. Sometimes you need relief, and that's okay. But if you're taking them every single day just to function, that's not a solution. That's a Band-Aid on a problem that needs something more targeted. The stress factor. And fifth, chronic stress. This one surprises people. But cortisol, the stress hormone, suppresses your immune system's inflammatory response in the short term. But when stress is chronic, cortisol levels stay elevated, and eventually the body becomes less able to regulate inflammation properly. People with high chronic stress often notice their joint pain is significantly worse. And it's not just in their heads. The inflammation connection is real. Sleep is part of this too. During deep sleep, your body does most of its repair work, including in your joints. When you're not sleeping well, that repair process gets cut short, and your joints feel it. So, drink more water, move more often, eat fewer inflammatory foods, be careful with daily NSAID use, and manage your stress. None of those are revolutionary, but most people aren't doing all of them, and the combination really does add you. All right, so let's come back to the big question. If the real problem is that this protective fluid inside your joints is drying up, the joint oil, is there actually a way to restore it? To help your body produce more of it? Because that's where all of this is heading, right? We've talked about what's going wrong. We've talked about what's making it worse. But what can you actually do about the root cause? I spent a long time digging into this. And I'll be honest, most of the stuff I found was pretty disappointing. The same old glucosamine and chondroitin recommendations. Fish oil, anti-inflammatory diets, all things that might help a little at the margins, but none of them actually targeting the fluid depletion itself. But then I found something different, something that researchers have been studying specifically for its ability to support the production of that synovial fluid. Not glucosamine. That approach has basically been disproven by a major clinical trial. This is something else, something newer, something that actually made scientific sense when I read about how it works. And people are seeing real results. People over 60, over 70, people who had basically given up on ever feeling better. They're reporting that they're waking up with less stiffness, moving more freely, getting back to things they thought were behind them. Now, I'm not going to make you any promises. I don't know your specific situation. I don't know how long you've been dealing with this or what else might be going on. But I can tell you, what I found is worth knowing about. Here's what I'd like you to do. Down in the description below this video, there's a link. It's going to take you to a free presentation. No charge, no credit card, nothing like that. Just a presentation that walks you through the research, what doctors are now discovering about this specific approach to restoring joint fluid, and shows you what it looks like in practice. It takes maybe 10 minutes to watch. And if you've spent years dealing with joint pain and you've tried things that didn't really work, I think it's worth 10 minutes of your time. The link is right there in the description. Click it. Watch the presentation. Learn what's actually being recommended now. Not 5 years ago, not the old glucosamine story, but what researchers are finding today. Because here's the thing. You don't have to keep living in that cycle we talked about. The grinding, the inflammation, the pain, the limitations. If the root cause can be addressed, there's a real chance things get better. And I'd hate for you to sit here and never find out. Go check that link. I'll be right here when you get back. Okay, let's keep going. I want to talk about some specific signs that your joint fluid situation has gotten serious. Signs that tell you it's time to really do something about this, not just manage symptoms. Sign number 1, the cracking and grinding sound. If you hear and feel a grinding sensation when you move a joint, your knee when you stand up, your hip when you walk, that is not a sound you should ignore. That grinding, what doctors call crepitus, is often the sound of surfaces that don't have enough fluid cushioning between them moving against each other. Now, occasional joint popping is usually fine. Most people's knuckles pop. That's just gas bubbles in the fluid. But a persistent grinding or grating sensation, especially one that's accompanied by pain or getting more frequent, that's your body telling you the cushioning is running low. Sign number 2, swelling that comes and goes. When a joint doesn't have proper fluid protection and gets irritated, your body sometimes responds by flooding the area with inflammatory fluid. It's trying to protect the joint. But the result is swelling, warmth, and often that deep, throbbing ache. If you notice your knees swelling after a walk, or your fingers puffing up in the mornings, that's inflammation responding to mechanical stress on an unprotected joint. It's a warning sign. Sign number 3, pain that limits your range of motion. Pay attention to whether your range of motion is slowly decreasing. Can you still bend your knee to put on a sock? Can you turn your head to check your blind spot while driving? Can you reach overhead without pain? Progressive loss of range of motion is a sign that things are getting worse, not staying the same. A joint that hurts at the end of its range today might hurt at a much more limited range 6 months from now if nothing changes. Sign number 4, pain that wakes you up at night. Daytime joint pain is one thing. But when the pain starts waking you up at night, when you can't get comfortable because every position puts pressure on a painful joint, that's a sign of more significant inflammation that needs attention. Sleep is when your body repairs itself. When pain disrupts sleep, you get less recovery. And then the pain gets worse because you're getting less recovery. It's another vicious cycle. Sign number 5. You've changed your life around your pain. This one is probably the most important and the most honest sign to watch for. When you realize you've been unconsciously reorganizing your entire life to avoid joint pain. Choosing restaurants based on how far you have to walk, declining invitations because you don't know if you'll be able to handle the terrain, skipping social events because standing and moving hurts. That's the moment to realize that this is no longer a minor inconvenience. Joint pain that limits your life is joint pain that needs to be addressed at the root level. Not just managed, not just lived with, actually addressed. I want to spend a few minutes on glucosamine because I'm guessing you've either tried it, thought about trying it, or been recommended it by someone. Glucosamine has been one of the most popular joint supplements for decades. Walk into any pharmacy and you'll see huge bottles of it. A lot of doctors recommended it for years. A lot of people still take it. Here's what you need to know. There was a very large clinical study, $12 million worth of research, funded by the National Institutes of Health. It was designed specifically to settle the question of whether glucosamine works for joint pain. The result? Glucosamine worked no better than a sugar pill, a placebo. For the vast majority of people, it did nothing. And yet the supplement industry kept selling it because they were allowed to. If you've been taking glucosamine month after month and wondering why your knees still hurt, now you know. It's not that you did something wrong. It's not that you needed to take more. It's that glucosamine is simply not addressing the real problem. Remember what we talked about earlier. The real problem is the drying up of synovial fluid, that joint oil. Glucosamine doesn't restore that fluid. It doesn't address fluid production at all. It was never going to fix the root cause. The same goes for most other popular joint supplements. Chondroitin, fish oil, collagen powders. They might play a supporting role in joint health, but none of them specifically target synovial fluid restoration. And if the fluid is the key problem, none of them are going to give you the relief you're looking for. This is why so many people feel like they've tried everything and nothing works. They haven't tried the wrong things because they're dumb or uninformed. They've tried the wrong things because the right information hasn't been easy to find. That's changing, slowly, but it's changing. And that's what the research is starting to show, a more targeted approach to this specific problem that glucosamine was never designed to address. I want to take a moment to talk about what's actually possible, because I think one of the most damaging things that has happened to people dealing with joint pain is that they've been given almost no hope. You go to the doctor, you describe your symptoms, and the message you leave with is essentially, this is just what happens. Here's something for the pain. There's no mention of addressing the underlying cause. No mention of restoring the fluid. No talk of actually reversing the trajectory. And so people start to believe that this is just their life now. That the ceiling for what's possible has been permanently lowered. That they'll never garden again. Never hike again. Never get on the floor with their grandkids again. I don't think that has to be true. Now, I want to be careful here. I'm not promising miracles. I'm not saying everyone who addresses the synovial fluid problem is going to feel like they're 30 again. That would be irresponsible. But what I am saying is that when you address the actual root cause, when you give your body what it needs to restore that joint oil, real things happen. The grinding decreases. The morning stiffness gets shorter. The pain that used to stop you starts to ease up. And slowly, you start doing things you'd stopped doing. Some people notice changes within the first few weeks. Others take a bit longer. The research suggests that meaningful changes can start to happen within the first month when the right approach is taken. What does improvement look like for real people? It looks like waking up and standing up without spending 5 minutes on the edge of the bed. It looks like going down the stairs without holding the railing like your life depends on it. It looks like taking a walk with your spouse without dreading the return trip. It looks like getting on your hands and knees in the garden for the first time in years. It's not dramatic. It doesn't happen overnight, but it's real. And it can change the day-to-day quality of your life in ways that are hard to put a number on. That possibility That real, grounded, scientifically supported possibility is what I want you to know about today. All right, we've covered a lot of ground today, and I hope it's given you a new way of looking at what you've been dealing with. Because understanding the problem is really step one. Step two is finding out what to actually do about it. If you haven't clicked the link in the description yet, please do it now. There's a free presentation down there that goes deeper into this, specifically into the research on restoring synovial fluid, what ingredient researchers have found to actually move the needle on this, and what people are experiencing when they finally address the root cause. It's not a long video. It won't take up your whole day. But if you've been dealing with joint pain for months or years, and you're still looking for something that actually works at the source, this is worth your time. Thousands of people over 60 have already watched this presentation and found something genuinely helpful on the other side of it. Real people, real results. Not because it's magic, but because they finally started targeting the right problem in the right way. That could be you, but you have to take the first step. Click the link in the description right now. Watch the presentation. Give yourself a chance to feel better, because you deserve that. After everything you've been through, the pain, the disappointments, the things you've had to give up, you deserve to find something that actually works. Don't put it off. Click that link now. Quick favor before you go. If this video helped you finally understand what's been happening with your joints, if it made something click that you didn't know before, hit that subscribe button right now. I put out videos like this regularly, and they're designed to give you the real information your doctor doesn't always have time to explain. And leave me a comment below. I genuinely want to know, what's your biggest joint pain struggle right now? Is it your knees, your hips, your hands, somewhere else? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one, and it helps me make better videos for you. Here's what I want to leave you with. Joint pain is real. It's hard. It takes things from you that you didn't expect to lose, activities you loved, moments with the people you love, the simple freedom of moving through your own day without pain. But it is not just aging. It is not just your fate. There's a real cause. There's a real mechanism. And there is a real opportunity to address it. You're not too old. You have not waited too long. You have not tried everything, because the right thing may be something you haven't tried yet. Check out that presentation. Learn what's available. Give your joints a real chance. I'll see you in the next video.